People think the world belongs to those who can see it. They're wrong. The world belongs to those who can feel it. I've spent enough time watching life go by to know one thing for certain. The kids who sit at the edges of the room aren't lost. They're listening harder than everyone else combined. Most people walk right past them, too busy, too loud, too distracted by everything they can see. But every now and then, the right soul finds the right moment in the most unexpected place. I watched it happen on a cold November morning at a small animal shelter just outside San Antonio, Texas. A water bottle fell and rolled across the linoleum floor. Helen Marsh didn't reach for it. Her hands stayed frozen at her sides as 22 children pressed against the walls of the main kennel hallway behind her. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They were all staring at the same place, the far end of the isolation wing. A 10-year-old boy stood alone near the last kennel. His white cane rested against the chain-link gate. Both his hands were loose at his sides. His head was tilted slightly, the way blind people tilt their heads when they're listening to something the rest of the world isn't paying attention to. And then he whistled, short, soft, a simple rising pattern, 2 notes, a pause, then 2 more. The mixed-breed dog behind the gate stopped pacing. It sat down, then it took 3 steps forward, sat again, pressed its nose against the chain link. No one had touched it. No one had commanded it. No voice, no leash, no treat. Just a boy and a sound, speaking a language this shelter had never once thought to try. 6 hours earlier, the tap of a cane on hardwood pulled Noah Rivera out of sleep. That was his alarm, his mother walking down the hallway toward the kitchen. Her footsteps had a rhythm he knew better than any clock. Heavy on the left, lighter on the right. She'd twisted that ankle 2 years ago, and it never fully healed. He lay in bed for a moment, counting the sounds of the house, the coffee machine clicking on, the refrigerator humming, a bird outside the window, doing something complicated with 3 notes. He listened to it for a while, the way other kids might watch TV. Downstairs, his mother was already moving. "Field trip today?" Diana Rivera asked, her voice coming from the direction of the stove. Noah nodded, then said, "Yeah," because his mom needed to hear it. He navigated the kitchen by memory, 14 steps from the doorway to the table, chair always on the left, bowl where he left it the night before, near the edge he could feel. He'd lived in this house his whole life, and knew it better than any sighted person ever could. The angle of the morning sun on his cheek told him it was before 8. The smell of the air said cold outside. He wasn't nervous about the field trip. He'd stopped being nervous about things like that around age 7. Nervous meant you still expected something good might happen. Noah had learned to walk into places with lower expectations. It hurt less that way. In his backpack, folded into the front pocket next to his spare cane, was a small printed card. White background, black raised letter text. "I am blind. I navigate using a white cane and my other senses. Please speak directly to me. I can hear you just fine." A school counselor had given it to him in 2nd grade. He'd never once taken it out in public. The school bus was loud in the specific way that school buses always are. Voices bouncing off metal walls, shoes squeaking on the floor. Someone's headphones bleeding a tinny beat 2 rows back. Noah sat near the front, the same seat he always chose, close to the driver, close to the door. The seat beside him had someone's oversized backpack in it. He knew because he'd reached out and felt it before sitting down. He didn't ask whose it was. He already knew the answer would be silence, or something worse than silence. A boy named Connor Briggs pushed past him in the aisle at one point, his elbow catching Noah's shoulder. "Watch it," Connor said. The irony of those 2 words landed quietly and went nowhere. Noah pressed his face toward the window. He couldn't see the fields outside, but he could feel the temperature change in the glass as they passed from open land into shade. Could feel the bus slow on curves, could hear the pitch of the engine drop as they climbed a small hill. Somewhere out there, a dog was barking at something, faint far away. He tracked it until the sound dissolved. His hands rested in his lap, still, patient. A painted wooden sign came into view, not that Noah could see it, but the driver said, "All right, kids, here we go." And the bus slowed and turned on gravel. and Noah felt the whole world change texture beneath him. Pinebrook Animal Shelter. He stepped off the bus last, came touching down first, tapping twice to feel the surface. Gravel, uneven. He adjusted his stance. The air hit him full in the face. Cold, and underneath the cold, something warm and alive and complicated. The smell of animals, hay and fur and something earthy. The distant sound of dogs moving in enclosed spaces. He liked it immediately. Inside the main hall, a woman was talking. Helen Marsh, shelter manager, had the kind of voice that carried, clear and practiced. She was explaining rules, protocols, the proper way to approach an animal. Noah stood near the back of the group, cane touching the floor in small circles, while he listened. He caught everything. Every word. That was one of the things people always got wrong about blind kids. They assumed that because Noah couldn't see Helen, he wasn't paying attention. They assumed the world was somehow dimmer for him. They looked past him the way you look past furniture. What they didn't understand was that Noah was always paying the most attention in any room. When you can't rely on sight, everything else becomes precise, sharp, exact. He heard Helen's keys jangling on her belt. He heard the nervous swallow of the volunteer beside her. He heard the subtle shift in the children's feet when they got bored, a collective rustle, like wind moving through dry grass. He also heard the dogs. Even from the main hall, they were there, a chorus layered under everything else. High barks, low barks. A distant whimper. A kennel door clicking somewhere deep in the building. He was already listening for the one that might be different. Mrs. Flores led Noah's group into the main kennel hallway. Dogs lined both sides in chain-link kennels, numbers painted above each gate. The moment they walked in, the noise jumped up 10 levels. Barking, jumping, tails hitting metal, paws scraping concrete. 22 children moving and shouting and pressing up against the gates. And the dogs responding to all of it. The movement, the energy, the visual chaos. Noah hung back. He had a system. He would approach each kennel slowly, crouch down, and whistle softly. A low, gentle two-note pattern. Something small. Something that said, I'm here. I'm not a threat. I'm just listening. Kennel 1. A beagle mix, going absolutely frantic over two boys banging their sneakers on the concrete. Noah crouched, whistled softly. The beagle didn't register him. Its whole body was aimed at the noise and movement behind Noah. He rose, moved on. Kennel 2. A young Labrador spinning in excited circles. Noah whistled. The lab's head turned, but then Connor yelled something from down the hall, and the dog spun toward the sound. Gone. Kennel 3. A terrier mix. Noah could hear it before he reached it. Short, sharp bursts of high-pitched barking, like something hitting a wall repeatedly. He crouched, whistled. The terrier kept right on barking, aimed at the group of children crowding the hallway behind him. Noah stood, moved on. Kennels 4, 5, 6. The same. Every dog was locked onto the visible, moving, noisy world behind him. He wasn't invisible exactly. He was just outcompeted. The other kids brought more of what dogs respond to. Visual motion, eye contact, excited body language, and noise. Noah brought stillness and sound. And these dogs weren't tuned for either. Diana watched from the back of the group. She watched her son move from kennel to kennel. Crouch, whistle, rise, move on. Crouch, whistle, rise, move on. Nothing. Each time, nothing. She had a specific kind of ache that lived behind her sternum. Not sharp, not sudden, just a constant low pressure that had been there since Noah was 4 years old, and she realized what his world looked like. What the world's response to his world looked like. She'd felt it at birthday parties where the games all required sight, at baseball practice where the coach hadn't bothered to adapt a single drill, at Halloween when kids ran ahead and Noah followed the sound of their voices, always a beat behind, always catching up. The ache didn't get easier, it just got familiar. She kept watching. Connor Briggs stood at Kennel 7 with two of his friends. A golden retriever was losing its mind with excitement, bouncing at the gate. Connor stood square in front of it, arms out, body language big and confident. Here, boy, look here, look at me. The dog immediately locked eyes with him, tail going like a helicopter blade. Connor turned to his friends, satisfied. You just gotta make yourself the most interesting thing in the room. Noah stood 5 feet behind him. He heard every word. Make yourself the most interesting thing in the room." He turned away before his face could show anything. The main kennel hallway ended at a door. Gray metal. A sign bolted to it. "Staff only. Isolation wing." Noah's cane found the doorframe. His hand followed it upward to the sign. He read the raised letters with his fingertips. Slowly. Carefully. He should have turned back. He stood there instead. Footsteps behind him. Heavy, uneven, with a slight drag on one foot. An older man. Noah had noticed him during orientation. He'd stood slightly apart from the others, and when he spoke, it was with the easy economy of someone who chose words carefully because he knew how much they weighed. The man reached past Noah and pushed the door open, found a rubber wedge somewhere and kicked it under the base to hold it. Then he said nothing, just stepped aside. Diana found Helen Marsh at the front desk. "My son is blind," Diana said. Her voice was even. She had learned, through years of practice, not to apologize for her son before even stating the need. "He's been trying to connect with the dogs in the main hallway, but most of them seem tuned to visual cues. Is there any dog here that might respond differently? Something trained with sound commands? Or maybe older and calmer?" Helen looked up from her paperwork. Her expression did something that Diana recognized immediately. The brief rearrangement of features. The professional warmth assembling itself. "All our animals go through standard training protocols," Helen said. "Vocal commands, basic obedience. It's consistent across the board." Diana waited. There was usually a but. There wasn't one. "You might check with your vet about assistance dog programs," Helen offered. "Some organizations do custom placements for—" a small pause, "for specific needs." She returned to her paperwork. Diana stood there another moment. The conversation had closed like a door. She'd heard this particular sound 1,000 times. She turned away. The isolation wing smelled older than the rest of the building. Less bleach, more time. The air was thick and settled, like a room that didn't get opened on most days. Noah's cane moved steadily in front of him. Short, measured taps on the concrete, reading the floor. Most of the kennels here were empty. He could tell by the silence. No breathing, no movement. No the specific density that animals give to a space. He moved past them slowly. Kennel 8, empty. Kennel 9, a cat somewhere. He could hear the soft, irregular breath of it sleeping. Kennel 10, empty. Then he reached the end of the hallway. He stopped, because there was something there. Not a sound, not yet, but a presence. The particular stillness of an animal that is watching. Noah had learned to read this kind of silence the way other people read faces. It had a texture to it, a weight. His hand found the clipboard on the nail beside the gate. He felt the paper surface, but he couldn't read it. No braille, just handwriting. He stood for a moment. Then, very quietly, he whistled. His usual pattern. 2 short notes, rising, a pause, 2 more. The thing about the way Noah whistled, it wasn't random. It wasn't nervous habit. It was something he developed since he was small, a way of announcing himself gently to the world before the world announced itself to him. 2 notes forward, 2 notes back. "I'm here, are you there?" Silence. Then, movement, slow, deliberate. A large body shifting on concrete. Then, 1 bark. Not frantic, not anxious. Clean and clear. A single sound with a shape to it. Like a word. Yes. Noah's breath stopped. He whistled again. The same pattern. The dog answered with 1 bark. Same position. Precise. Noah's hands found the chain link. He pressed his fingers through the gaps. Cold metal. And then, warm fur. A nose pressing into his palm. Not lunging, not frantic. Just contact. Steady and sure. He whistled a different pattern. 3 notes, descending. The dog moved. He heard the pause. Step, step, a pause, step, and then felt the presence shift to his left. He whistled again. Rising pattern. 2 notes. The dog moved back to center. Sat. He heard the weight settle. Noah's chest felt strange, tight and loose at the same time. He had never, not once in 10 years of life, experienced anything like this. Every dog in the main hall had ignored him. Every animal he'd ever encountered responded to eyes and hands and visual cues. To the world he couldn't enter the same way. But this dog heard his sounds, understood them, answered them. This dog lived inside sound the same way Noah did. He whistled again, short, bright, A question. The dog barked once. In a U.S. Army training facility in Georgia, 3 years and 7 months ago, a handler named Staff Sergeant Frank Okafor sat in a medical office getting news about his eyes. Diabetic retinopathy, progressing faster than expected. He would not be deployed again. His peripheral vision was already compromised. Within 2 years, he would likely need to retire from active service. Frank was 31. He'd been training working dogs for 6 years. His current dog, a 5-year-old mixed breed named Echo, had 18 months of service. Outstanding record, excellent nose, calm under pressure. After his diagnosis, Frank had quietly begun retraining Echo differently. He couldn't always rely on hand signals anymore. His peripheral vision would sometimes miss his own dog's response. So he switched to whistle commands, a private system, precise and consistent. A rising pattern for sit, descending for stay, a quick triple for heel, 2 notes forward, 2 back for come. Frank had documented all of this in his training log, carefully, methodically, the way he documented everything. When Frank was medically retired 8 months later, the file got routed through 3 different offices. By the time Echo was transferred to a civilian shelter, first outside Houston, then in Dallas, then finally Pine Brook outside San Antonio, nobody had thought to open the training log. Standard evaluations were run. Vocal commands, hand signals, clicks and snaps, and whistles, but the standard ones, not Frank's patterns. Echo didn't respond, didn't engage, possibly traumatized, possibly unresponsive due to prior stress. Recommend behavioral assessment before placement. 3 shelters, 2 years, nobody tried something different. Nobody thought to ask what sound this particular dog was listening for. Noah didn't know any of this. He only knew what was in front of him. A dog that answered his call. He whistled the descending pattern, the one he used sometimes when he wanted an animal to settle. Echo lay down. He whistled the rising pattern. Echo came forward, pressed against the gate again. Noah laughed. A real one, surprised out of him, the kind that doesn't plan itself. He pressed his forehead against the chain link. He could feel the dog's warmth through the metal, could hear the slow, steady breath. "Hey," Noah said softly. "I hear you." The dog made a sound. Not quite a bark, not quite a whine. Something in between. Something that sounded to Noah's ears like a full sentence. Footsteps echoed in the hallway behind him. Quick ones this time. And then his mother's voice tightened the edges. "Noah." And then a second voice. Helen Marsh. Clipped, professional. "This area is off limits too." And then the older man's voice. Calm as flat water. Diana pushed into the isolation wing. Helen a step behind her. She saw Noah immediately, crouched at the last gate, fingers through the chain link, his forehead almost touching the metal. And behind the gate, a dog she didn't recognize from any of the other kennels. Mixed breed, medium size, a brindle coat, old enough to have some gray around the muzzle, ears slightly forward, eyes fixed on her son. Not pacing, not barking, watching. Helen's voice had the careful sound of someone reciting policy. "This wing houses animals not cleared for public." "He's not touching the dog," Diana said. She kept her voice even, controlled. She had given this exact version of this speech at the school office, at the church youth group, at the public pool, at 6 different birthday parties, at the optometrist's office, at the DMV. He's talking to it. "The dog has been flagged for behavioral review. He looks like he's sitting still to me." Behind the gate, Echo had not moved, not 1 inch, just sat there, pressing gently against the chain link where Noah's hands were. Diana looked at Helen. When was the last time this dog sat still for anyone? Helen opened her mouth, closed it. The old man appeared at the entrance to the isolation wing. Ray Kowalski, faded work jacket, a slight limp in his right knee. He walked like someone who had stopped hurrying a long time ago and was at peace with it. He had a folder under his arm. "Helen," he said, "I think you should see this." Noah was aware of the adults behind him. He could hear the conversation, fragments of it, the tension underneath the words even when he couldn't quite catch them. He felt his mother's presence shift closer, her hand landing on his shoulder. But he didn't turn, because Echo was still watching him. He whistled again, the short rising 2-note call. The dog answered, one clean bark. He heard his mother inhale sharply behind him, heard Helen go quiet. He whistled the descending 3-note pattern. Echo lay down. He whistled the rising 2 notes, Echo stood, walked to the gate, pressed his nose through the chain link into Noah's hand. The hallway was completely silent. Helen's voice, when it came, was different, stripped of its professional polish, just a voice. "That dog," she said. "That dog hasn't responded to a single person in 2 years." Ray opened the folder. "He has, just not to the right person." He pulled out a stack of papers, official stamps, army letterhead. "Found these in back storage. They got separated from his intake file in the transfer. Happens sometimes." He handed the top sheet to Helen. "His name is Echo. He belonged to a handler named Frank Okafor. Frank developed vision problems while on active service. Trained Echo differently because of it. Whistle commands, a private system, documented right here in his training log." Helen read. Her face changed. "Every shelter ran the same standard evaluation." Ray continued. "Vocal commands, clickers, basic hand signals, standard protocol." He paused. Nobody opened the log. Helen looked up from the papers. "Nobody tried anything different," Ray said quietly, "until right now." Diana stood very still behind Noah. Her hands were pressed flat against each other at her mouth. Her shoulders were shaking. She had fought for 10 years. For interpreters, for adapted activities, for teachers who would actually show up, for a world that kept asking Noah to meet it rather than moving an inch toward him. She had filed complaints and made phone calls and sat in offices and smiled at people who meant well and still got it wrong. And here in a concrete hallway that smelled like bleach and old food, a dog was doing what most of the world had never managed, meeting her son exactly where he was. Diana pressed her hands harder against her mouth. The tears came anyway. Ray appeared beside her. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then he said quietly, "The loud ones get the attention. The quiet ones usually do the real work." Diana breathed out something halfway between a laugh and a sob. Ray reached into his jacket and handed her a piece of paper. He'd written on it before he came into the isolation wing, she realized. Block letters. Clear and careful. Echo waited 2 years for someone to speak his language. Your son did it in 2 minutes. That's not luck. That's who your son is. Diana read it twice, then she folded it and put it in her jacket pocket and kept it there. Helen's clipboard was at her side. She stood looking at the military documentation spread across her hands. The transfer log, the training notes, the handler's careful record of a system nobody had thought to look for. Evidence that her shelter, with its standard protocols and efficient evaluations, had misread this animal for 3 months and labeled it broken when it was simply waiting to be heard correctly. "I've already put a hold request on the transfer." Her voice was quieter now. "I filed it 20 minutes ago." Diana looked at her. "And if the board says no?" Helen looked at Noah, at the dog, at the space between them. "Then I'll file again," she said, "and again, until someone pays attention." Ray shifted his weight. His knee popped. "Never thought I'd hear you say that." Helen straightened her shoulders. "The board's job is to protect this organization. My job is to protect these animals." A pause. Sometimes those aren't the same thing. The field trip ended at noon. Mrs. Flores gathered the group in the main hall. Backpacks collected, permission slips checked, 22 children moving toward the parking lot. Noah stood near the back. His cane made small circles on the tile. His mother was still speaking with Helen near the front desk, voices low. He had been brought out of the isolation wing 10 minutes ago, guided gently back toward the main hall. He hadn't argued. He had learned years ago that arguing only made the adults more anxious, and anxious adults made worse decisions. But he'd listened hard as he was walked away. Listened for Echo. One bark, just as he turned the corner. Clean, clear, the same one. Noah had stopped walking, just for a second, then kept moving. Connor approached him now near the main hall. He'd been somewhere in the crowd when everything happened in the isolation wing, had seen the adults crowd around, had heard things he didn't fully understand. He wanted to say something, wasn't sure what. He stepped in front of Noah, waved a hand to get his attention, then immediately felt stupid because Noah couldn't see the wave. "Hey," Connor said. "Hey, Noah." Noah turned toward his voice. "That was," Connor started, stopped. His brain had prepared a sentence, but now, standing here, it fell apart. He stood there with nothing coming out. His friends were watching from across the room. The silence stretched. Connor laughed. It came out wrong, too loud, too quick. The kind of laugh that escapes when you don't know what else to do with your body. His friends laughed too, ripples moving outward. Noah heard it. He heard everything, every note of it. He didn't need to see faces to understand what laughter after awkward silence meant. He'd learned to read that particular sound when he was 4 years old. It hadn't changed. He turned and walked toward the door, one foot in front of the other, even pace. He passed Mrs. Flores. He passed his mother, who was mid-sentence and didn't see him go. He pushed through a side door. He found a supply room down the hallway, door slightly open. He went inside and let the door swing shut behind him. It was quiet in there, stacked bags of dog food against the walls, the dusty smell of dry kibble. He found the wall and sat down against it, knees pulled up, cane across his lap. The concrete was cold through his jeans. He didn't cry, not because he was trying to be strong, just because crying required a kind of hope he'd run out of. Crying was for people who thought someone might come if they heard. The laughter replayed in his head, not the sound. He'd heard enough to know its shape, but the meaning, the exact familiar meaning of it. It was the sound of someone filling space when they didn't know what to do with you. He'd been hearing it his whole life. Stupid. The word arrived quietly in the dark. Stupid to think today was different. Stupid to let yourself feel something in that hallway. Stupid to think one dog changes anything. He pressed his back harder against the cold wall. He was still the boy who sat in the front row of the bus alone, still the one whose seat got used as a bag rack, still the one Connor Briggs told to watch it in an aisle, without even a beat of awareness that the words made no sense. One dog understanding his whistle didn't fix any of that. The door opened. He heard his mother before she spoke. He knew her footsteps. Left heavy, right light. Noah. He didn't move. She crossed the room, dropped to her knees on the concrete beside him, pulled him against her. He didn't hug back, kept his arms around his own knees. His body stayed still, but he let himself be held, because right now that was all there was. She pulled back after a moment. He felt her hands on his face, tilting it gently. "Talk to me," she said. "What happened?" He was quiet. "Baby, please." His voice came out flat and small. "I want to go home." Diana stared at her son, at the emptiness in his expression, at the hands that had been so alive an hour ago, whistling, reaching through chain link, laughing, and were now motionless in his lap. She didn't have the words. Ray found them 5 minutes later. He stood in the doorway, took in the scene without rushing to fill it. Then he leaned against the frame and waited, the way people wait when they understand that silence is doing its own work. Diana looked up at him. "I don't know what to do." Ray pushed off the frame. His knee popped. He crossed the room slowly and lowered himself to the floor beside them, back against the wall. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He pressed it into Noah's hand. Noah felt it, ran his fingers across the surface. Then he said, "I can't read this." "I know," Ray said. "I'll tell you what it says." He cleared his throat. "Echo waited 2 years for someone to speak his language. Your son did it in 2 minutes." He paused. "That's not the shelter. That's not luck. That's you." Noah was quiet. Ray continued, slower now. "I had a wife, 37 years. She was born without most of her hearing. World was loud for her too, just differently." He scratched his jaw. "She used to say the world makes noise at everyone. Some of us just have to find the noise that's meant for us." Noah's fingers turned the folded paper over and over. "That dog is still in there," Ray said. "Still waiting." Noah's hands went still. After a long moment, he stood up. Helen Marsh was at the front desk when Noah walked back across the main hall. She was on the phone. Paperwork open, the military folder spread beside her keyboard. Her voice was tight, professional. Noah stopped at the edge of the desk. She looked up, held up a finger, "Wait," and kept talking. Noah reached into his backpack. Front pocket. He found the laminated card, felt the surface, the raised edges of the text he knew by heart, without needing to read it. He placed it on the desk. Helen's eyes moved to it, read it. Then she looked at Noah. She said into the phone, "I'll call you back." Set it down. Noah pulled out his phone. He'd been told about the Notes app in school, text-to-speech, screen reader, simple enough. He typed by feel, fast, and turned the speaker on. A robotic voice read his words aloud. "That dog is not broken. I am not broken. We just need people to try something different. Please don't send him away." Helen read along as the voice spoke. She set her pen down. She looked at this boy, white cane, phone in hand, card on her desk, who had walked back into this room after whatever had just happened in that supply closet, and said the one thing she hadn't been able to say to herself all morning. "Sweetheart," she started, "there are procedures." Diana appeared behind Noah. She'd been following a few steps back, watching. "Helen." Her voice was quiet, the voice of 10 years of practice. "My son has never once asked anyone for anything. Not from his school, not from his coaches, not from the city pool that wouldn't adapt its swim lessons, not from any of them." She put her hand on Noah's shoulder. "He's asking now." Helen looked at the card, at the phone, at the boy. Ray limped in from the hallway with Dr. Priya Anand, the shelter veterinarian, behind him. Anand carried a folder, thicker than the one Ray had found, flagged with colored tabs. She spread it on the desk without preamble. "Complete service record," she said. "Training logs. Behavioral assessments from Frank Okafor's posting. All of it." She pointed to a flagged page. "This is the handler's own documentation. He wrote it 3 weeks before his medical separation." Helen leaned in, read it. "Echo demonstrates exceptional response to whistle-based commands. Recommend whistle training be documented for all future placements. Asset well-suited for visually impaired handler placement, pending civilian certification review." Helen read the sentence again. Visually impaired handler placement. She set the page down, pressed her palm flat against it. "This dog was supposed to be placed with someone who couldn't see," she said. Quiet, almost to herself. "Specifically." Anand nodded. The paperwork got scrambled. 3 shelters ran standard evaluations. Nobody opened the file. Helen looked at Noah, at the card on her desk, at the phone still glowing in his hand. She'd run this shelter for 12 years. Hundreds of animals. Thousands of evaluations. Systems built on efficiency, on doing things the way they'd always been done. And right in front of her was proof that the way things had always been done had failed one animal for 2 years and nearly failed him permanently. She picked up her phone. "I've already requested a temporary hold," she said. "The board chair is reviewing tonight." She looked at Noah. "And if he says no, I'll request again." Ray shifted his weight. His knee popped. He nodded once, slowly. For the first time, so did Noah. 2 weeks later, the shelter parking lot was quieter than before. No yellow buses, no 22 children, just one car cooling in the November air and 2 figures walking toward the entrance. Frost sat on the grass at the edges of the parking lot. The hand-painted sign was still by the fence. Pine Brook Animal Shelter. Every animal deserves a second chance. Diana walked beside her son. Their breath came out in small clouds. Noah's cane tapped the familiar rhythm on the pavement. He hadn't said much during the drive. His hands stayed in his pockets. But she noticed the way he tilted his head as they got closer to the building. Listening. Inside, the main hall was calm. Morning light through the front windows. The distant sound of dogs settling in for the day. Helen Marsh stood near the front desk. No clipboard today. Hands at her sides, fingers laced together. When she saw them come through the door, something moved across her face. "The board approved the exception," she said. Her voice was steady, professional, but there was something underneath it. Something that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. "The transfer has been canceled. Echo stays." Diana's grip found Noah's shoulder. "Additionally," Helen continued, "Dr. Anand contacted a veterans service organization that helps with working dog certification. They've agreed to cover the evaluation costs and assist with formal training documentation." Noah stood still. He was listening to Helen's voice, catching the weight of the words. Canceled, stays. He'd spent 2 weeks not hoping, 2 weeks telling himself it was too complicated. Too many forms, too many people who needed to say yes at the same time. Noah, a new voice, close. It was Connor Briggs, He was standing 3 feet away, no friends with him. He held something in his hands, a handmade card, construction paper, slightly crumpled at the edges, like it had been carried around for a while before being brought here. He held it out. Noah reached for it, ran his fingers across the surface, felt the slight bumps of dried glue. "I can't read it," Noah said. Connor's face went red. He'd somehow not thought of this. He started. "It's everyone in class signed it. All 22 of us." He swallowed. "I got them all to sign." Noah waited. Connor took a breath, read it out loud, voice a little rough at the edges. "We hope you get to keep him." He folded the card back over. "And, he looked at the floor. "I'm sorry about before, at the shelter. I didn't know how to do it right." Noah nodded, slowly. "Yeah," he said. "Okay." That was enough. Ray appeared from the hallway. Same jacket, same limp. He stopped when he saw Noah, tipped an imaginary hat. An old gesture, a little formal, completely sincere. Noah couldn't see it, but he heard Ray's footsteps pause, and something in the pause said everything. They walked toward the isolation wing. Same gray walls, same concrete floor. Noah's cane tapped the familiar rhythm. He'd memorized this hallway 2 weeks ago. The slight incline near the entrance, the place where the floor leveled out, the draft from the vent above Kennel 3. They reached the end. Kennel 11. Noah stopped. He heard it immediately. Silence. Not the empty silence of an abandoned kennel. A waiting silence. The dense, particular quiet of an animal that is completely still because it is paying absolute attention. Noah's cane touched the gate. His hand followed, found the chain link. His throat tightened. He heard Diana inhale sharply behind him. Heard Helen say, softly, "We moved him to the exam room this morning." Dr. Anand just finished his checkup. Footsteps at the end of the hallway, a door, and then pause on concrete. Walking, steady. Noah turned toward the sound. He whistled. 2 short notes, rising. A pause. 2 more. 1 bark. Clean, clear, immediate. Yes. Noah crouched down. The pause stopped in front of him. He felt the dog's nose press into his palm. The same warm, steady pressure as 2 weeks ago. The same patience, the same certainty. Noah wrapped his arms around Echo's neck and pressed his face into the fur. He didn't move for a long time, just stayed there, feeling the rise and fall of the dog's breathing, feeling the warmth of it against his chest. Echo didn't pull away, didn't flinch, just sat with him, solid, present. Noah whistled softly, not a command this time, just sound, just the 2 of them, in a quiet that wasn't empty at all. Diana stood against the wall, both hands over her mouth. Her shoulders shook. She didn't stop the tears. 10 years. 10 years of fighting for accommodations that arrived late or not at all. 10 years of watching her son navigate a world that kept asking him to adapt without offering to meet him halfway. 10 years of the specific, relentless grief of loving someone who was fine, who was more than fine, but lived in a world that kept missing him. And here in a concrete hallway that smelled like kibble and cold November air, a dog was doing the thing she'd spent a decade hoping the world might manage. It heard her son. Ray stood beside her. He didn't say anything for a moment, just watched. Then, the loud ones get remembered. The quiet ones change things. Diana pressed her hands against her face, said nothing. In front of them, Noah sat on the cold floor with his arms around a dog who had waited 2 years to be heard correctly. He whistled once more, soft, low, barely sound at all. Echo pressed closer. Noah's mouth moved, just one word, home. The dog didn't know the word, but he knew the voice, knew the warmth in it, knew what it meant when the tension left someone's body and they stopped bracing for the next hard thing. He rested his chin on Noah's shoulder. Some connections don't need eyes to see them. Some languages don't need words. And some doors, if you're willing to try a different key, have been open all along.